guys, it's Jonathan here from Set Sail, and in this week's video I'm going to be sharing 5 tips for beating creative block. So hopefully by the end of this video you'll be ready to punch creative block in the face. So a couple of weeks back I put a tweet out saying, creative folks, how do you beat creative block? And I got a bunch of responses on there, as well as things that I've been thinking about myself, and so I've collected them all into what I consider to be 5 top tips. Tip number 1, get inspired. So sometimes you're just sitting down to create something, you've not really got many ideas, and sometimes we think we might be wasting time if we go and look on design blogs or watch videos, but it's actually a really good way to make sure you're inspired to create the things that you're about to create. So I like to go on design blogs, sites like Pinterest, YouTube videos, documentaries, galleries, all that kind of thing. Adrielle on Twitter says, I always go to museums or watch stories on other people's art and then I get inspired. Anything that makes me think too. If I'm going to design something, sometimes looking at really beautiful design helps me to get started. That's why I have a bunch of design books over here that I like to flick through and just get ideas from. And sometimes it helps to get inspiration from outside your field. So if I'm going to do a graphic design for like a poster, maybe I'll look at illustration and fine art, or I'll go to a gallery and look at sculptures, or something that's not the exact thing that I'm working on, so I can actually draw inspiration from something else. Maybe I like the way that light and dark was used in a certain design, and I can bring that into the way that I write music and try and bring out kind of light and dark textures in a musical arrangement, that kind of thing. Another great way to get inspired is to learn something new. Sometimes when you just go and learn a new skill, it really kind of gets you fired up again for creating things, and a bunch of people mention this on Twitter. Paul Kirby from Wild says, I usually try and work through it and get all the bad ideas out, or I start teaching myself new things. Ian, who does some amazing hand lettering and worked on some of the posters for the To the Highest Place lyric video, says, try learning something new. I have a Skillshare account, so I usually jump on there and find something that I can't do and go through the course. That break from the norm can sometimes get the pistons firing again. Totally agree. And again, Caitlin says, learning something new really does wonders. Tip number 2, just do something. Sometimes the thing that's intimidating and stopping us from being creative is just that point of actually getting started. Like looking at the blank page of your new notebook and you don't know what to do on the first page, or staring at like an empty Photoshop document and you don't know what to create. Something that I love to do, whenever I buy a new notebook, I open page 1 and I scribble all over it. Because sometimes you just need to do something in order to get started, and the first thing you do might not be very good, but at least you've started, and once you start getting out some ideas, you find that you might get to the really good ideas later on. I find this especially when I'm doing something like t-shirt design. I'll just bash out as many as I can, even if they're not amazing, and eventually I'll get to something that I'm like, I love that one. The key to getting over that intimidation of the blank page is just to begin. Tip number 3, narrow the brief. This might sound kind of backwards because sometimes we feel like we want creative freedom and we just think, oh, I was just trapped in these really specific things and I want the freedom to create whatever I want to create. But actually, sometimes constraints can help us to be creative. And these big kind of open briefs where people just say, just create whatever you want. Sometimes it's hard to actually know where to even begin with that. Especially if it's client work and people just say, just create something cool that you normally do. It's like, but I don't know the kind of thing that you really want. So if you're working with a client, try and dig into some more detail of what it is that they actually want you to create. If it's your own personal project, then try just picking out words. Like, think about moods that you want to convey. What is it that you want to communicate through the thing that you want to create? So if I'm going to design some album art, I'll start by just writing down some words that I want to communicate those kind of feelings. So I want it to be fun, I want it to be energetic, I want it to look bright and summery. And just by having a few of those initial ideas to go off, then I have a basis for creating something. Another good way to bring in some constraints is to set yourself a time limit. For some people this works, for some people it's their worst nightmare, but I find sometimes giving myself a deadline of like, I need to have this thing done by Friday, or I'm just going to work on this thing for like 3 hours right now. Having that kind of time limit really helps me to focus, because otherwise I'll just procrastinate and watch YouTube videos of cats, and I just need to sit down and create something. Simon on Twitter mentioned this as well. He said, set the clock to limit the time you have, helps you to get focused. Completely agree. Number 4, and this was probably the most common response on Twitter, take a break. I realise that might sound kind of backwards compared to the time limit deadline tip, but this is for like when you've been working on something for a while and you just feel like it's not working or the ideas aren't coming. Taking a break is actually a really good use of your time. Try going outside, doing something completely unrelated to whatever it is you're working on. Now, Noah said go outside or do something monotonous like chores. Sometimes that helps to reset my creative juices. By the way, he took the photo on the cover of the Autumn EP, if you've seen that, so shout out to him. Dan Petty said very simply, vacation. Also, if you haven't checked out Dan Petty's channel and you're a creative person, you should check that out because it's awesome. Arn said step away from whatever it is you're doing for a second and just enjoy time with God, friends, family, or yourself to feel refreshed. Which is a great tip. And again, if you haven't checked out Arn's YouTube channel, you should definitely do that as well. There's a lot of shout-outs going on in this video. Sometimes when I'm writing songs, I find that I can be working on an idea for ages, trying all kinds of different things out, but it's actually when I stop and go somewhere else that I get the best idea. Most of my favourite song ideas have come to me while I've been driving, which is something that Dylan mentioned as well. He said, go for a road trip. Driving always gives me ideas for some reason, and even better if there's a new place for inspiration at the end. Sometimes you're just overthinking the thing that you're trying to create, and you just need to stop. Okay, it's raining pretty hard right now. Apologies for the noise. I guess it adds a bit of lo-fi ambience. Tip number 5, pray. Now, this might seem like a weird concept to you, but I had this realization a while back, this kind of light bulb moment that I realized, like, God is a creator, and the only reason that I can create things is because he created me, and he made me in his image to be creative. So God's like the original source of creativity and of inspiration. So whenever we're feeling stuck with things and we don't know how to create, we can turn to the Creator and speak to him. There's that verse in the Bible that says we love because he first loved us. I like to kind of flip it and say that we create because he first created us. And God understands craft. I mean, look at Jesus. He was a carpenter. He actually knows what it means to work on something and to create something. I don't know if Jesus ever had creative block or if he was just inspired all the time, but God understands the creative process, and it's good to go to him and ask him for help and ask him for inspiration. Maybe the prayer thing is new to you, I don't know. For me, I find it a really helpful thing, and going to God for inspiration, I just find the ideas just flow. So guys, they're my 5 tips. 5 tips for beating creative block. I hope you found that useful. Of course, if you have your own, feel free to leave them in the comments, and we'll be back next Friday at 8 PM with another video. See you guys then.